I was talking by telephone with my married grandson Joshua the other day, and we started talking about the time when he was 5 years old and came to visit my wife and me. So he was with grandmama and granddaddy. Well, I asked him what he wanted to do, some of the things he wanted to do, and one was to catch a salmon, and the other was to go lion hunting. Well, it was hard for me to tell him that we really didn't have salmon in Mississippi, and the lions were pretty hard to find too, but I said, well, come on, we'll go try them. So we got a couple of poles and some crickets and headed to my pond to see, this pond back here behind me that you're looking at, to see if we might be able to coax a salmon to bite. Well, but the salmon weren't biting that day. We caught a couple of little bass and a few brim, which seemed to satisfy Josh, though the original goal of salmon wasn't accomplished. Then we rummaged around the house and found the Red Ryder BB gun. I'd bought him at a Ducks Unlimited auction when he was about 2 or 3 weeks old. Now you got to understand, he was my first grandson, and my first grandson had to have a gun of some type, so I bought him a Red Ryder BB gun at a Ducks Unlimited auction. Well, we found the gun and we got a handful of BBs and took off through the pasture to see if we could stir up a lion or two. Didn't have much luck with that either. And after a while, it was beginning to get dark, and I suggested to him that his grandmama, they call her Gammy, was probably close to having supper ready, and they wanted us to be there when supper was ready. I'm sorry that we didn't see any lions, Josh, but he seemed sort of disappointed at the lack of them and told me that he just didn't think we had been hunting hard enough. And I said, well, okay, but lions like to lay around in the briar patches, and especially when it gets dark, they're pretty hard to see and might be right by you before you could see them. They rustle around in the briar patch before they charge out. Well, about that time, a rabbit or a bird or something rustled around in the briar patch that we were pretty close to. He stopped dead still and looked at me, and then he said, on second thought, he was getting pretty hungry, and he thought it'd be a good idea to go on back to the house for supper. So we did. Now, we went back without any lions or without any salmon, but it was still a pretty good afternoon. You know, trips like that between grandpas and grandsons usually are. I'm Jim Ritchie. I'll see you again next time.